What's interesting too is I hear from people talking about the benefits of decentralized data centers as opposed to large hyperscale data centers. And I hear people talk about edge. So the question is everything going to be growing at a rapid clip, or are there going to be more winners and certain less favorable footprints for all these data center sizes going forward?
It's interesting. There's so many different words, like what is edge? Define edge. If you're a hyperscaler, edge is 10 megawatts, 5 megawatts. That's not really edge in some minds. Some minds they go, oh, edge is 10 racks, and it's in a more regional location. And I use the US. You don't put a 10 megawatt edge deployment in Alaska. Alaska is a very far remote location with limited telecommunications. It's a small 50 rack site, and that sort of edge, and that's very, 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 very large edge. What we're seeing is that it's applicable to the different parts of the world. Conversation with providers go, we believe this is a focus point. We want to focus on this. Therefore, we define it as whatever that is. There's a growth for that area. So there's always going to be winners and losers. And as much as I hate saying those two words, they don't. Everyone's a winner. It's just who's more successful, or what is the demand that's focusing on that area that they're in. Sometimes you, as I said to my parents, I was in the right industry but born in the wrong state. That's just how I am. With my love and passion for data centers, they're not based in my local town. So as much as they are in other regions, and same with people who live in other areas. Colorado's got some great places as a state, but if you were in LA, or you're in, someone on the other side of Miami, that's growing, but not as much as New York. So everyone has an issue of you weren't necessarily localized in a DC hub. But what we are seeing is that those areas that aren't necessarily predominant being a tier 1, but now becoming a tier 2 market or a tier 3 market. In those markets, because of the conversation we just had with demand, with capacity and availability and the success, because they want to see growth in that area as well, becoming prominent and becoming more dominating because they're new and early adopting. Which means that when you're building a site, 20 odd years ago when they were building sites, and because those tier 1s have got a bit of history as well, they've been around for a lot longer, they were hard to build a greenfield site. Look at New York as a prime example. 60 Hudson, a beautiful building, it's got a lot of rich history around the telecommunications sector. Very much supportive of it. Been through it. The guys are amazing. But you can't knock it down and build 100 megawatts on that block of land because that building is such an old historical presence. It's very hard to do that in the heart of New York or places like that. So in a tier 2 location where they go, we're not as old as that. We don't have heritage listings. We don't have a different infrastructure that changes the way we do things. We can put 100 megawatts in a particular area. You're building a greenfield, location, or a very, very easy brownfield retrofit. So we're now seeing that demand grow. So the support around that has changed heavily. That's what sort of seeing now is that the demand has grown in a region, whether you call it edge, far edge, near edge, hyperscale, DC, whatever you want to call it, nodes. Everyone's becoming more successful because there is a demand for it. And that's the whole premise of this, Joshua, is the capacity is there, the growth is there. People want to see that and support that. And, if I had a few billion lying around, I'd build a few DCs right now in some locations. I mean, I would have done admittedly probably a year or two ago because the demand is very high and there's less capacity around. So if you can do that, there's some companies I'm working with and know that are growing their footprint and trying to do as quick as they possibly can because the demand is such high, has never been higher, and it's such a high right now to ride in to get into the industry.